Hi, I hope you're having a great first week of the semester. Like me, you might be a little bit in denial that the summer is over, but here in Connecticut, it's supposed to be somewhere in the 90s today. So I think even though school started, I'm still going with summer here. And so I wanted to do a video for you all this week to go over some of the things that you'll do this week, talk a little bit about the concepts in the reading just to make sure that you feel 100% confident in them, and just let you know that I'm here to answer any questions you have. So I wanted to start with the reading out of the textbook. And some of you have asked, it doesn't matter if you have chapter 11 or chapter 12 of the textbook. The chapter numbering changed in the 12th edition because they added a couple chapters. So just double check that the course titles are the right one before you start reading a chapter. But there's not a ton of changes to the content. So either the 11th or the 12th edition should be fine. So for this week, you were asked to read chapter 1, which is chapter 1 in both books. And it's about sort of the foundations of why we do social work research. And I thought it might be useful to highlight some of the terms that are in that you may have encountered in other classes, but they might be not familiar to you. One term that they talk about that's really important to us as social workers is that they talk about the need for social work students to demonstrate some competencies around research. And the two terms that they use here that come out of our assessment standards for whether or not we get to be an accredited social work program are practice-informed research and research-informed practice. So what does that mean? So what this means is that our goal here is to prepare social work students who will go on to be social workers who will do research that is informed by what's really happening in the world. So not research that's very sort of in a lab and separate from real life and designed to answer really interesting questions, but not applying to real life. So as social workers, the vast majority of social workers who do research are really looking for answers to questions. So the research that I've done in my career has looked for answers to questions like what kind of a shelter for survivors of domestic violence is really effective in helping that population, or what kind of work can we do around voting and voter engagement that will help our future social workers like you to feel more confident around the voting process and transfer those skills to the clients that we work with. So I think it's really important that these are not questions that I'm interested in just because they're interesting, although they're certainly interesting questions, but I'm really interested in them because I want your social work education to be better. I want your social work practice to be better. I want my social work practice to be better. And then the flip side of that, research-informed practice, means that if I go to see a social worker, whether in private practice or in an agency at the micro level, at the macro level, I expect them to be focused on interventions that we know work, right? So not interventions the way we've always done them, not programs that exist the way we've always done them. The example I'm going to use, so some of you might dislike this example because you may have experienced this, but if you have gone to school in the United States in the last 30 or 40 years, you have experienced the DARE program. And the DARE program, for those of you who are not familiar, is a program that's designed to help kids say no to drugs. So here's the problem. It doesn't actually work. All of the research on the DARE program shows that it's really ineffective at accomplishing its goal. And yet we keep doing it because now parents who are parents now were kids who went through the DARE program and they have a really strong emotional attachment to it. My kid's elementary school does the DARE program, and I'm gearing up to have a very polite conversation to talk about whether or not there may be some other programs that we could use that could be more effective. I'll let you know how that goes. It's our very first day tomorrow, so I'm maybe going to wait a little bit before I start advocating. But we want to do social work practice that works, because if we don't, we could be causing more harm to our clients than what they started with. That's obviously not our goal. But also then we're pulling dollars away from effective programs and putting them into ineffective programs. And that's really not what we want to do as social workers. You'll also see in your textbook that they talk about sort of 3 different roles in research. So they talk about being a research consumer, a research partner, or a research creator or disseminator. Now, you may have come into this class thinking, well, I'm never going to do research. And the fact is that some of you may not ever be research creators, but all of us as social workers are research consumers, and most of us are also research partners. So what that means is a consumer of research is someone who can go to the peer-reviewed literature, go to government documents, go find information about the intervention that you want to do before you do it to make sure it's the best intervention for the client, family, community, agency, wherever you're doing it. A research partner is someone who either works in an agency and helps facilitate research, so maybe doesn't do the research themselves, but says to a social work academic, like, the people who work here come into our agency and evaluate what we're doing and help us figure out what's working and what's not working. We also consider the people who participate in our research partners. So when I worked on a national study of survivors of domestic violence, we had about 2,500 women and about 15 men across the country. Domestic violence happens to women and men, but this was a study of people in shelters, which is primarily women. And those people, we could not have done our research without them. It would have made no sense without them. It would have been pointless. Those people were our partners in our research. And then research creators or disseminators are the people that you might think of. So social work professors or people who work for government agencies or, people who are paid to do research as their full-time job. And that's obviously an important part of the research process, but it's important to keep in mind that that's just one role. And creating research, if you don't get it out there to other people and other people aren't reading it in a way that's useful for them, then you're just doing research for the sake of doing research, and that's actually, I would consider, not really an ethical use of time and resources either. The other thing I wanted to talk about, there's a couple terms that are going to come up over and over through the semester, and that's quantitative and qualitative. And the two different versions of the textbooks sort of use this interchangeably. So they'll use the term quantitative and positivistic interchangeably, and qualitative and interpretive interchangeably. I have a really hard time saying interpretive. I'm going to do my best. So quantitative or positivistic methods are the kinds of things that you might think of when you think of research that asks you a question and then asks you to pick from a list of answers, or sort of is testing a hypothesis, right? This program works, yes or no. Qualitative research or interpretive research is the kind of research that is not looking for the truth, right? The right answer. It's looking to see what people's experiences are. So a lot of you have had classes with or talked with Dr. Ostrander, who's down the hall from me here. His research that he finished a couple years ago was a qualitative study around clinical social workers and what they think about political participation. So he wasn't looking for the right answer. He was looking for what their experiences were. Dr. Marmo, who's here as well, does qualitative research around the experiences of people in palliative care and hospice and oncology. Again, not looking for the right answer, but really trying to understand what happens when people are going through some of these things. And so they're both really important kinds of research, but they answer different questions and they use really different methods to get at that. And we'll get into that a lot more this semester. I also wanted to highlight that your textbook talks about the characteristics of a good researcher. And I want you to just listen to this, right? A good researcher is someone who's aware of their own values, who's skeptical and curious, who shares the information they find, and is honest. I'm going to argue that that's fundamentally most of the things we want in a good social worker as well, right? We want people who are curious about other human beings and how their lives work. We want people who are aware of our own values and how those values might influence what we do. And certainly we want social workers and researchers who are honest. So those are some of the things that are important to us in research. I would argue that being a social work researcher is being a social worker. It's just doing your social work practice in a little bit different venue than maybe what people typically think of. And the last term I wanted to talk about is evidence-based practice. So this sort of circles back to that research-informed practice idea. You will hear the term evidence-based practice a lot in social work, and what that really means is that we use a lot of our professional knowledge and expertise in making judgments about how to approach a situation. But that professional judgment needs to be built off of evidence-based, and it needs to be constantly reassessed and reevaluated to make sure that it's still accurate. And so I want you to keep an eye out for that term as you go through the class and as you go through the social work program. All right, so what do you need to do this week to have a great week in this class? So you're already watching this video. Great first step. You've got some readings to do this week. So other than chapter 1 in the text, you're also going to read an NPR article about poverty and intervention around poverty, and you're going to use that to answer this week's discussion, which asks you to think about what research topics what research questions you might come up with around that particular article. You're also going to read a really great article about a social work student and the research that she did and how that was used. You're going to listen to a podcast. So full disclosure, I'm a big fan of podcasts and a big fan of TED Talks. You're going to do both of those this week. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. It's sometimes nice to have different ways to get the information rather than just reading. So the podcast that you're going to read is called Truth Warrior, or you're going to listen to. It's called Truth Warriors. And then the TED Talk you're going to watch is by a guy named Dr. Ben Goldacre, who's going to talk about ethical research. Now, let me just warn you, if you haven't seen it yet, he talks really fast, and he is from, totally blanking, it's either Scotland or Wales. My family over there would be so mad at me. So he has an accent, and it talks fast, so you might have to watch parts of it a couple times to understand, but he's hilarious, and I think he does a great job of highlighting some of the ethical issues in research, so I definitely recommend that you watch that, and let me know if you have questions or if there's anything you can't understand. I've watched it about 1,000,000 times. The other things you need to do for this week, if you haven't already, and I know a lot of you have, is fill out your syllabus acknowledgement that you've read the syllabus. And then, of course, if you've read the syllabus and you have any questions, it's a great time to fill out that form and then let me know what your questions are. Film an introductory video, about 3 minutes, letting us know a little bit about you and then about how you think research connects to social work. The discussion I mentioned is around that research question from that article. And then there's a quiz for this week based on the reading. One of the things I want you to know is that all of the quizzes for this class are quizzes that you can take over and over again. So if you take a quiz based on the reading and it helps you understand that you didn't really get part of the reading, stop, go back and do the reading again, email me and ask questions, and then you can go back. You'll get a new set of questions out of that test bank, and you can take the test again. And you can do that as many times as you want this week. So those are the things you need to do this week to have a great week. I've already emailed with some of you with questions. Keep it up. I'm so excited to hear from you. I'm really excited to teach this class this semester, and if you're in the heat wave area where I am, please stay cool and safe in the next couple days. I think that's it. All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.